What is going on, people? It is that time of year. We're on the eve of opening day. Congratulations, you have made it. Has it been worth the wait? We're about to find out for your favorite team. We know this. This officially will go down as episode number 274 in your scorecard of Unfiltered. You can jump on board 24/7, 365. To get on board the Unfiltered Revolution, it is easy. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. Of course, you could jump on the artist formerly known as Twitter. X, if you will, up into the bio, and then go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, like, tell all your friends. You get all kinds of content now, 272, 3, 4 episodes deep. We continue to roll on here into opening day. And you also can follow Unfiltered with Casey Stern now on Instagram as well. We have a lot to get to. I want to get into some of the particulars. And so, what I'm looking forward to, and some of the questions we have that are going to be bandied about here as we get into opening day with your favorite team. But I want to know from you, what does opening day mean to you? I'm going to let you know here on this podcast, but I want to hear from you. Let me know on Twitter or X at Casey Stern. What does opening day mean to you? And I mean specific stories personally. I want to hear from you along the way. We're always good to be heard from. Thanks to our good friends at Bet Online, your number one source for all your sports betting needs, latest odds, lines, and matchup reports, baseball, basketball, boxing, golf, all the sports. Favorite casino and card games also available to play right now from your phone. It's the fastest and easiest way to get all your wagers. So get over to the website or your mobile device and sign up today, but use the promo code BELIEVE. It's BLEAV. It'll get you a 50% bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online is where the game starts as we get started here. And let me start with that. Opening day. Opening day. What does opening day mean to me? Personally, what opening day means to me is hope. It is that eternal, everlasting, yearly hope that your team, and for me, obviously, it's been the Mets my whole life, would have a chance to make this a special season. But then it's what surrounds that hope. It's your family and your friends and the excitement. And back when I grew up, it was not with social media, it was more with riding your bike and sitting there and talking with your friends about what it was going to be like, asking your parents to miss school, finding a way to get tickets to several opening days, which I did, was lucky enough to do as a kid at Shea Stadium. And then that joy, that incomparable kind of canvassing of hope and joy that you feel when you're in that ballpark for opening day, when you walk in and get your first hot dog that's overpriced, when you pay your parking that you don't realize that you paid half your check just to get into park in the lot. All those things just feel better because opening day is different. But what it means for me now in life, and I think for a lot of us as adults, what opening day means to me most, it's the day every year you get to be a big kid. It's the day every year you feel like a large child where all the problems go away because the only thing you're thinking about is the fact that you now officially can begin a baseball season. Opening day, as good as it gets. What does opening day mean to you? I want to know. We know this. When you look around the league, there are a ton of questions, and let's get to some that we look at as the landscape kind of gets ready and prepared for a season to begin here in 2024. In the American League, the issue of Garrett Cole and his injury is one of, if not the biggest question, because as much as I do think for sure Juan Soto's MVP is loading and it's going to be a big time season for him, and he's had a lot of those, but I think he's certainly primed and prepared heading out to market to just break the bank. And I think you saw in spring training, I know those numbers are what they are, just how locked in he is. And I think the lineup is deeper. And there's a lot of things to like about the Yankees. But if Garrett Cole is healthy and at the front end, they can be a difference maker in the American League East. They can be a difference maker in the landscape of the American League. If Garrett Cole's not healthy, they're not going to do that. He's as good as any pitcher in the AL. That's why he's a Cy Young Award winner. But the idea that we're just going to expect that in this timeline that he's going to come back in what initially was, let's say, 8 to 10 weeks is a little bit crazy to me. Anytime you've seen these scenarios where guys have tried to avoid Tommy John, and look, Neil Elitrosh is good as there is in the business. So if it could be avoided, it'll be avoided. Whatever the processes are, they're the right processes that Garrett Cole is going through. But make no mistake, there's no guarantee that once he starts throwing, and then you get to simulating and pen sessions and facing hitters, and then you get to the rush and the max effort of actually in a game, that he's going to get through each one of those steps and not have a setback. So we don't know whether or not we're going to see this guy in a month, 2 months, the All-Star break, or if at all. And I'm not trying to sit there and hedge to the negative, but let's be honest, we just have no idea. And because of that, to me, anybody who is saying that the Baltimore Orioles are not the favorite in the American League East and not one of the favorites in the American League, they're not paying attention. They didn't do this whether they surprised you or not with smoke and mirrors last year. They did it with a lot of youth and a lot of growing potential of young players who have gotten better and better and better. And oh, by the way, Jackson Holliday, who may be the best of the bunch, not even with the team to start and probably going to end up rookie of the year eventually once he gets to the big league level this season in the American League. And that's not all. Because the biggest question for the Orioles a year ago was, how are they going to pitch at the front of the rotation? What are they going to do? And I said and thought that the Jack Flaherty addition was not enough. They needed to do better, with no offense to Jack, and they just didn't do that. Well, guess what? In an offseason that seemed like, blase, blah, all of a sudden, boom, here comes a Cy Young Award winner in Corbin Burns, who's playing himself out to market, got everything to pitch for, and is a dog, and absolutely is a guy who can change the landscape of this entire league, let alone the Orioles, with what he could do for this rotation, the specific need. That's right. To me, I think a lot of people, and one of my big stories going into this season is the Baltimore Orioles are kind of being disrespected by a lot of people, and they shouldn't really be disrespected by anybody. Not only can they be as good, but there are a lot of reasons to believe they can actually be way better. Out west in the American League, we're not sure you could be better than Texas was for them with their first World Series run. But you think about all the youth with the Carter and the Langfords, and you think about all that they have in the depth of their team, and they hope that is more of that in the bullpen now than there was a year ago. There are a lot of questions that lie with them that relate to health as well. Because if you tell me Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer could do X and Y as the season goes on, well, why wouldn't you believe they can repeat? But can they, if they don't get anything out of those guys, do enough to thwart what the Astros are bringing to the table? A team who got better, a team who on the back end, now with Abreu, Presley, and Hader, has as good of a group as anybody in Major League Baseball. And in an area where so many close games are played out west, that is going to be a key factor. So to me, maybe as big a question as anybody or anyone or anywhere is going to be, what in the world are they getting out of those two guys who used to be pitching for the Mets, for the Texas Rangers, as they move forward this season? But I love the youth, love the Langford story. Looking forward to seeing the Rangers. Two-team battle, I think, for me, a little bit of smidge. I love Julio. I think Seattle, certainly Gilbert, and you can talk about all the good things they can do. I think that's more of a wild card race for me. We'll see, than being kind of in it to win it, at least when you get down the stretch. The other thing is, a lot of this will play out at the deadline because that's how it is every year. I mean, it's, the whole prospects are cool thing. I mean, it's cool to talk about because that's where we're at. I mean, when we get into that a couple of weeks before a deadline, that's where all those moves are made and teams are pushing their tickets to push that pedal down. And let's be fair. I mean, the Astros have a tendency to want to do that. And the Rangers certainly, I know they're not going to be afraid seemingly to do that either. I'm curious to see the Jays in the East. I'm curious to see Seattle out west, two of the teams I watch to try and kind of break in to that mold in the AL at the top. Who's breaking into the National League at the top? Nobody. To me, look, and we're going to get into the Padres have gotten better and should not be disrespected. And clearly, to me, of all the also-rans and the redemption stories, Mets, Cardinals, others, back to a postseason this year with what they've put together. You just get as good on paper, which means nothing, because the Dodgers I'm about to talk about lost the Diamondbacks in the postseason a year ago, so it means nothing, and they lose in the postseason all the time, so it means nothing. But you cannot get better on paper than what you see from the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves. Those are the best two teams on paper, not in the National League, but in Major League Baseball, in my opinion, and I'm not sure that that is an opinion and not a fact. And they are a two-headed monster. The Atlanta Braves, down here where I am in the ATL, I mean, Alex Anthopoulos and his group, they got answers for days. Whatever their questions are, they seem to be able to reach down and pluck and get the next guy. The lineup depth is insane. They're going to put it on you from their first AB all the way through the game. They littered with MVP candidates, not just Acuna. When you look at what Olsen has become, and I love the ability that they seem to have to play big in big moments over these last few years. And that continuity and camaraderie is a thing. I mean, they are just a machine. Now, the Dodgers can be that as well. We're just not sure if they will. The Otani story aside, as we kind of wait to see what happens with that, and that's going to take a long time. The Yamamoto thing is a concern. It's not a concern because I don't think he can be a top 10 pitcher in the sport because his stuff says he can. It's not a concern because I think that, spring training numbers in one start are the end because they're not even the beginning. But it is a concern from this standpoint. Here is a guy who has never failed before, ever. And he was dominating overseas. I mean, the equivalent of being a Cy Young MVP stud time and time again, right? A three, I think. He came over here and he struggled in spring training, and he's probably having trouble with the command of the split finger. And then he struggles and doesn't pitch well in his first start. And you could say all the right things, but when you have never failed and you talk to players who are high level picks, and this is a different scenario as a guy who comes in getting paid a lot of money. But if you talk to guys who are high level picks, when you are used to being at the top of the heap all the freaking time and never, ever experiencing failure, and then boom, here you are. That is a question of confidence. And will it get to him? We've seen this with guys who have been dominant before, and all of a sudden there are hiccups. It takes them a while to get back from being off the reservation. We'll see what happens now with Yamamoto. That's a big key for me with the Dodgers when you look at how they set up for the season. There's no question they're going to hit. And oh, by the way, Teoscar Hernandez, an underrated signing, who gives them even more depth in that lineup, and that trio as good as any we've seen. Let's be fair. We used to talk dynamic duos. I covered Manny and Poppy. We talked Braun and Fielder and a million others. And the last couple of decades, since that's been a thing we kind of look at. How about trios? I know it's not heart of the order. We don't do it old school style, but when you got Betts and Freeman and Otani, that's as good as you're going to get. Dodgers are primed and ready, but they've been that and been thwarted before. And last year it was the Diamondbacks who did it. And the Arizona Diamondbacks now bring in a franchise record payroll with the addition of Jordan Montgomery. When Erod comes off the IL, their staff is going to be among the better pitching rotations and deeper ones from a starting pitching aspect in all the National League, not just in the West. They've got an MVP candidate in Corbin Carroll. They've got a team that understands how to squeeze the most out of the orange, and the right guy leading him to do it in Torey Lovullo. They're a dangerous ball club again, but they're not alone because the San Francisco Giants, to me, are very, very interesting. When you look at the Giants and you think about Blake Snell, and we'll see what he looks like when he gets on the mound with the Giants. But when you've got Blake Snell, Logan Webb, and the way Jordan Hicks has look, I know spring is spring. We struck out 10 dudes his last time out. His transition from being a back end guy blowing your way to going through the lineup has seemed to be seamless. And if he can pitch that way, the Giants are going to be absolutely nasty and a real contender in this playoff mix. Do I think any of these teams, Diamondbacks, Giants, or Padres, are beating the Dodgers in the division? I don't think it's likely. But could I see 4 teams with a chance to get into the playoffs and 3 who get in? Absolutely. Do I think the Padres are a redemption song to sing? I do. I think that that's possible with Mike Schilt, by the way, trying to do the same. And I think with the Giants, I really believe in them as kind of that outskirts of town, a team that you should pay attention to. The Phillies, obviously, in the Eastern in that category as well. And in the National League Central and the AL Central, who the hell knows? I mean, the AL Central is always a toss-up of who knows what. Probably the Twins, but maybe it's the Guardians, and who the heck knows what it's going to be. And none of those teams can, unfortunately, at the end of the day, compete with the East or the West. And they'll love hearing that from me or anybody, but it's just reality. The National League Central, one story's always been the same. We never know who's going to win, but the Brewers are going to be better than we think. That will not be the case this year. David Stearns, New York. Corbin Burns, Orioles. The roster, not the same. So you're probably looking at Cardinals and Cubs in that rivalry with the Reds kind of in the mix as well. I really think if the Cardinals have a healthy Sonny Gray and he can get back on the mound and be healthy and be as successful as I think he can be, and we know that he is, a great year last year, right? If he can do that and they can get enough depth of innings, the Gibsons, the other guys that they have in there, to just not tax the bullpen as much as they did a year ago and give that offense a chance, I think they're going to have enough to be able to thwart the Cubs and get to the top of that division. But I think Chicago, St. Louis, probably back and forth as the year goes. I want to know your thoughts. Who do you think's winning the World Series? Who you got for the awards? And what does opening day mean to you? Does it get any better than the beginning of a baseball season? I say no. I do also say this: you should stick with us. Get all the episodes full in their entirety. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. If you're listening there now, you should jump on artist formerly known as Twitter, X, if you will, at Casey Stern, into the bio, YouTube channel, Instagram, hitting you from all avenues, and happy to have you with us as the baseball season begins. We are Unfiltered, as always, presented by our good friends at Bet Online.